In this video, I'm going to share the best way to feel confident in meetings. When I was completing my law degree, I suffered from so much self-doubt that I'd completely over-prepare for every one of my classes. But it worked for me because by being the most prepared person in the room, I knew that I couldn't be asked something I wouldn't be able to answer. Also, it meant that I could contribute where others needed time to review their notes. This was my personal tactic to boost my confidence enough to get through. Given that women tend to have lower self-esteem than men and often fear that they might say something wrong, so speak far less in meetings, try to walk into any meeting as prepared as possible. It goes a long way in boosting your confidence because you would have taken the time to think of thoughtful questions beforehand and think of some insightful contributions. This is especially important when you're in video conference or video meeting because it's all too easy just to be silent and then be forgotten. Believe it or not, people who use the word strategy are seen to be more competent, smarter, and more strategic. When you're contributing your perspective or asking a question, try and link it to your company's strategy. Try asking, how would this help us achieve our strategic goals? Or, I think that's a great idea as it helps us achieve our strategic priorities. Or even, have we thought about how our overarching strategy ties into what we're discussing? This line of questioning reflects that you're a big picture strategic thinker, which is essential for meeting kudos, but also for being recognized as a valuable contributor to your company and lining you up for leadership positions. Did you know that if you're confident at work, you're automatically seen as better at your job? There is a really strong positive correlation between confidence and perceived competence, which becomes a challenge for many women who are naturally more timid or more introverts, or even those who don't want to be, boasting about all of their achievements and their successes and they want to remain humble. But in order to convince others of your abilities, you want to try to become more comfortable with owning and communicating your strengths, your previous successes, and communicating that you are good at what you do. So find ways to boost your confidence and display this at work so that you're not overlooked and so that you gain the visibility that you need to be recognized. Who gets nervous when they're about to give a presentation or speak in an important meeting? Anyone? When you're nervous, what happens is often you speed up how quickly you speak, and you might not use pauses effectively. So to combat this, you want to actually speak slightly slower than you might ordinarily, and make sure you leave enough time to breathe between phrases and sentences for greater impact and credibility. Not only does it help you regain your thoughts, but it actually gives your audience time to digest what you're sharing. During these pauses, you want to make sure you're maintaining eye contact too for greater impact. One of the easiest ways to speak up at a meeting and get some of that prized visibility is to be curious and ask probing questions to stimulate the conversation. Try asking things like, "That's a very interesting viewpoint, Trent. How did you come up with that?" Or, "I'd like to know more about your perspective, Sanchit. How did you make the connection?" Vocalizing your curiosity is a positive way of having your voice heard, even when you don't actually have anything to contribute. You'll feel more engaged as an active participant, and it offers opportunities for others to actually notice you, which is essential if you want to progress in your career. When starting a presentation, if you start with, "Hi, I'm Sade, and I'm here to talk to you about," you will lose half your audience. Start with an unexpected attention grabber, something to get your audience interested, like an interesting statistic or an analogy or even a question or short story. This ensures that your audience is present and paying attention right at the start. Then you go into your self-intro and then you share the summary of what you'll be covering. When you're sharing that, make sure you frame it up from the perspective of the audience's "what's in it for me?" You want to communicate to them why they should be interested, because if you can get them interested right from the beginning, they will be interested throughout the whole thing. How do you actually get people to like you at work? Well, it's actually really simple. You just need to bring a dose of genuine kindness and compassion. These are the two most important and most influential qualities. Well, at least I think so anyway. There's nothing more powerful than compassion and kindness, especially in the office. It's about genuinely caring about people and wanting to help them. When you take opportunities to serve others and let your innate gifts shine, people notice and they appreciate that. Action is far more powerful than words alone. People are looking for some light at work, some human connection, some glimpse that there are people out there who genuinely care about them. And you can be that person just by bringing your authentic kindness, consideration, and care with you every day into work. This is what will establish you as someone positive that others want to hang out with, want to be around, and want on their team. Stop self-censoring what you want to say. Studies show that women have more of a tendency to wait until they're perfect before approaching something new. Many of the women I coach share that they hold themselves back from sharing their opinion in meetings because they want to wait until they've devised the perfect way to say it. But if you have something you want to share, don't overthink. When you self-censor, you strip yourself of confidence and second-guess yourself. Just express your perspective as though it's as valuable as anyone else's. Because it is. Networking is a really important part of advancing your career. A lot of women struggle when it comes to networking, and one of the reasons why is because they can't think of what to say. They go blank, and they've had so many bad experiences that they just avoid the whole networking thing altogether. I used to be one of them. So here is a useful tip. It's not so much about what you say. Instead, you want to be showing a genuine interest and curiosity about the person you're speaking to. Focus on what they're saying and ask questions to delve deeper. Now, you might be thinking, what questions am I supposed to ask? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Here are some examples of great questions to spice up any professional conversation. What's been the highlight for you over the past year? What are you most looking forward to in the coming year? What's exciting you at the moment? If you never had to work again, what would you do? If you had the opportunity to spend a day in the life of someone else, who would it be and why? Happy networking. When you fear something, just like how I fear spiders, you avoid it. But this fear is created in our heads by our thoughts. We fear what we don't know, and too often we allow it to prevent us from taking action that could actually help us succeed. This deep-seated fear of failure that you might have stems in part from an innate desire for validation and approval that's been socially conditioned into you from a young age. It's become ingrained into your neurology, and the strong emotional pain that comes with fear of judgment is embedded into your brain and your body. So you need to unlearn this fear of failure, and one way to start is through self-compassion and acknowledging that we aren't perfect. By opening your arms to the possibility that things may not work out, and that it's not your fault if it doesn't, you can start to address the subconscious fear of failure by separating your sense of self-worth from the outcome. Your brain is wired to magnify what you focus on, and currently feeds and news outlets are completely overtaken with things relating to the pandemic. You choose what you consume. You choose how much time you're spending on social media while you're in isolation. We need to be really purposeful and intentional about what we consume and how much of it we're actually consuming. For us, we now have an internal criteria of what we ask ourselves. 1, would this help me better serve others? 2, would this make me happier? And 3, is it important for me to know? If any one or a combination of 3 is a yes, then it is worth our time. If you're constantly absorbing negative stories, absorbing the fear and the panic, it aggravates feelings of anxiety, uncertainty, fear, and overwhelm. Make sure you're mindful of what your mind consumes. Your mind will thank you for it. Hack number 1, own your achievements. Others, luck, timing. These are what women often claim are the reasons for any key successes. I was just in the right place at the right time. Or, I just have an amazing team, I can't take the credit. I hear this the most when women are accepting awards for their achievements, and this trait has been demonstrated in research for decades. Of course, acknowledge others where they need recognition, but don't underplay or undersell your successes. Acknowledge what you've achieved, recognize the effort and the skill that you've applied, and own it. You are not an imposter. Hack number 2. Don't blame yourself for everything. Women tend to self-blame when things don't work out and respond with, "See, I knew I didn't have what it takes." Have you done this before? It's called internal attribution. On the other hand, men are far better at external attribution if things don't work in their favor, responding with, "That was a really tough client," or "The market's just really challenging right now." If your project doesn't get delivered on time or you lose a major client, don't immediately blame yourself. Acknowledge that the outcome may have been impacted by factors outside of your control. It's not always your fault. Hack 3. Have more faith in your ability to progress. Have you ever held yourself back from applying for a job because you didn't feel like you had all the requirements in the job description? Don't worry, you are not alone. A number of years back, a Hewlett-Packard internal report shared that men will apply for a job when they have about 60% of the prerequisites, but women wouldn't apply unless they met all 100% of them. The same thing applies when women say they don't feel ready for an opportunity at work or taking a risk that could catapult their career progress. So just back yourself and go for it. The best tip for how to communicate with confidence is, drum roll, stop thinking about yourself. Many of the women I've coached have shared that they get nervous when they're sharing something because they're focusing on how they're being perceived. They have thoughts running around their heads like, I hope I'm making sense. I hope they agree. I hope I sound competent. But by focusing on you're increasing the amount of pressure on yourself, and it takes you away mentally from what you're sharing and instead puts you in your head. To others, you might appear to look uncertain or nervous, which strips you of your power and results in others focusing not on what you're saying, but on how you're saying it. So stop thinking about yourself and instead think about the message you're conveying and the impact you want it to have. Project your voice and be clear in your words. Keep your body and frame open to whoever you're talking to, as it instantly projects confidence and assuredness, even if you may not be feeling it. When we think someone likes us, we tend to like them as well. Psychologists have known for a while about a phenomenon called the reciprocity of liking. We like people more when we know or think they like us too. This is really important for when you're at work. When we expect people to accept us, we act a lot warmer towards them. And by acting warmer, it also increases the chances that they really will like us. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the lesson here is that even if you're not sure how a person you're interacting with feels about you, whether it's a coworker, a manager, the big boss, or even someone you're wanting to ask on a date, act like you like them and they'll probably like you back.